Deputy Tommy Broughan, please.
Thanks, Ken Corley. And first of all, Taoiseach, I'd like to join with you in expressing condolences to the four bereaved families in northwest Donegal on their recent tragic loss. I'd also want to express the total solidarity of myself and my independent colleagues with the Irish Nurses and Midwives organisation, who have to begin the first of the 24-hour strikes tomorrow. And indeed, as others have said, looking at the nurses' pay scales and the ongoing problems of recruitment and retention of nursing staff in our health system, I mean, it's little wonder that 95% of INMO members vote for the action. Now, you should take any steps that's necessary, Taoiseach, to prevent this strike happening. Last week, Taoiseach, as you know, the EU Medicines Agency said farewell to London, and the staff are now moving to Amsterdam, and their departure reminds us, of course, once again that we're only 59 days now away from Brexit. But we were all heartened, I think, over the weekend by the comments of the Taoiseach and the Minister for Europe that the agreed backstop will not be renegotiated. We've also seen over the weekend the clear wishes in various polls of our people, north and south, that no kind of a hard border will be allowed to return on this island. I note that the Taoiseach has indicated that a codicil might be added to the political declaration regarding the backstop. But can you confirm, Taoiseach, that the 21 articles of the protocol in the withdrawal agreement on Northern Ireland will be fully adhered to, especially given the presence of Articles 17 and 20. And can you also confirm that no works of any kind, Taoiseach, are taking place anywhere along the border, on roads or lay-bys, to facilitate the installation of any hard border apparatus? Obviously, tonight, events at Westminster and over the next 4 weeks will hopefully produce a much softer Brexit than what we rightly fear. But like other deputies, I am very grateful for the work of our civil servants and indeed of yourselves in producing a contingency action plan last December, and for the heads of the Omnibus Bill last week. Now, you've told us, Taoiseach, I think that the full bill will be ready in 3 or 4 weeks, and the 17 sections prepared by the 9 departments seem fairly comprehensive. Though I noticed that areas like fisheries are still not covered, they weren't covered in the withdrawal agreement and are still missing. So are all the relevant sections of the December contingency action plan and the Commission preparedness notice, the 87 notices, are they all addressed here, or do we have to wait, Taoiseach, for the secondary legislation? Constituents have noticed that, of course, given a possible no-deal Brexit, much of the proposed contingency legislation, for example health, education and pensions, protects the rights of UK residents and citizens in the Republic. But is the Government aware of any similar UK contingency legislation being prepared to protect the rights of our people in the north and indeed our people in England, Scotland and Wales? And you told me a few months ago that bilateral negotiations or legislation with the UK would have to take place regarding the common travel area, which many legal scholars say, of course, is just based on precedents. So will those bilateral discussions involve all the other crucial areas so that there's full reciprocity for all our people on this island? Will you be seeking, Taoiseach, derogation from state aid rules to offer further support to our exports, like the Future Growth Loan Scheme? And especially given that we're a significant net contributor to the EU budget, have you and the Minister of Finance now begun negotiating or beginning the negotiation framework for a financial support package for Ireland, as by far the most impacted EU country? I'm glad to hear that you've told us that the Minister for Finance has now done some costings and is prepared to produce them, which the opposition has been calling for. But is it the case that even with a much softer Brexit, and let's hopefully it's not a no-deal Brexit, Taoiseach, we will need a second budget for 2019? Thanks.
Thanks. Thanks, Deputy. As I think everyone in the House would acknowledge, it takes less time to ask questions than it does to answer them, and I think I counted about 11 there, but I will do my best to answer as many as I can in the time allowed. First of all, in relation to recruitment and retention of nurses and midwives, I acknowledge that's a problem. I absolutely acknowledge that that's an issue. We are struggling to recruit in large sectors and large parts of the public and private sectors at the moment. It is in part a feature of the fact that we're almost approaching full employment. And it's also a feature of the fact that when it comes to healthcare in particular, we live in an international labour market where people with healthcare skills are highly sought after. And even in countries that pay a lot more than us, you'll know that England, Scotland, most of Europe pays less, but even parts of the world that pay more, like the Middle East and Australia, they struggle to recruit healthcare staff as well. So it's not just a simple issue of pay. Notwithstanding that, we have 3,000 more nurses and midwives working in our health service than we had 3 years ago. Comparing like with like, month with month, we had 800 more nurses working in our public health service last December than we had the December before that. So the impression sometimes created that there are more nurses leaving than coming in is not correct. We have more coming in than are leaving, and we have more joining the health service than are leaving the health service. And our retention rate, our turnover rate, is about 5%. Roughly 5% leaving the profession every year, as opposed to a turnover rate of 15% in Australia. People 3 times more likely to leave the Australian Health Service than the Irish Public Health Service, and those figures come from the Public Sector Pay Commission and are independent and accreditable. In terms of a codicil, as I understand it, a codicil is a legal amendment after the fact to a treaty or an agreement. We've no proposals that we've seen from London or anywhere in relation to a codicil. I'm very conscious that there are votes happening in the House of Commons today. I was in touch by phone with Prime Minister May today. We intend to speak again after those votes happen, and we will take it from there in terms of the next steps. I can confirm that there are no works happening on the border, around the border, to facilitate the imposition of physical infrastructure. Any works that are happening are road repairs, I imagine, or improvements to roads. On the common travel area, what's required in order to maintain the common travel area and all of the benefits that flow from it, which are about much more than travel. We need an MOU with the United Kingdom, which we've been working on for some time, a convention on social security, which Minister Doherty and Minister Rudd have worked on, and we'll need legislation in both countries. But the legislation that we have shown you the heads of already and will publish on the 22nd of February covers our side of that, and the UK will have to do something similar.
Deputy Broughan.
I mentioned, Taoiseach, the issue of bilateral arrangements, I think, earlier, and discussions with the UK. I mean, our distinguished journalist, Fintan O'Toole, of course, says that geography is destiny. But is it the case, Taoiseach, that other Brexit-impacted countries like the Netherlands, France and Denmark are also beginning to make bilateral arrangements for the event of no deal? We hear, for example, that the French government is making arrangements with regard to UK-French trade and travel, and that the Dutch are also taking steps to protect their agri-food sector with the UK. And while Sabine Whayen's comments yesterday are welcome, do these bilateral moves by some of the other 27 echo recent slippage in the unanimous support I thought we had among the 27 for Ireland's backstop and the Good Friday Agreement? For example, recent comments in the Bundestag and by the Polish and French governments. You referred earlier on to the Central Bank of Ireland's quarterly report, Taoiseach, the macroeconomic implication of disorderly Brexit, and certainly does make sombre reading. I mean, clearly our growth in 2019-2020 will be totally wiped out, and hopefully in that context we'll be spared a disorderly Brexit. But are you telling us now that the Department of Finance and DEPR have fully estimated the cost of Brexit uncertainty so far and the likely impact of even a UK and the customs union type Brexit after 2020? And has it also quantified the level of the financial support Ireland needs and would expect from the European Union after March 29th next, after no deal Brexit, or indeed after December 31st, 2020?
Thank you,
Thanks, Ken.
I think, Deputy, in relation to bilateral arrangements or bilateral agreements, is something we have to be very cautious about. There has been enormous European unity across the 27 member states, and where states engage in bilateral agreements, it needs to be done with the knowledge of the European Commission. So, for example, when it comes to the common travel area, that is something provided for in the withdrawal agreement and the treaties already, and obviously we'll need to put in place legislation, and you've seen the heads of that already in relation to rail travel between Dublin and Belfast. France will have to do something similar in relation to the Channel Tunnel. In terms of the budget, it is not our intention, nor do we feel we need to revisit the budget. The projections being released by the Department of Finance today show that a no-deal hard Brexit will cause the economy to slow down very sharply, but not to the extent that we go back into recession. We're not projecting a return to recession. Employment will continue to grow, but not grow fast enough to keep pace with an expanding labour market. So under our projections, unemployment will rise. And instead of running a surplus this year, we will run a deficit, but a deficit in the region of 0.5% of GNP, so therefore a manageable deficit. But it will put us in a different position financially, but one that we can manage, and one that we've put the country in a good position for. There are other people not too long ago in this House arguing that we should spend more and finance it through borrowing. I think our decision not to do that has now been proven right, because at least now we'll be able to afford to borrow to mitigate against the costs of Brexit if we have to.
Thank you, Taoiseach.